Hey there, VC, it's TC. Feeling a little bit nostalgic today. Um, been getting the office set up. I'm hoping to have it done by the end of this weekend. If not, I have a vacation coming up a week from Monday. I'll be able to finish getting all my stuff undone and unbunged and put into a place where I can actually get to it. But I have been feeling a little bit nostalgic lately. I haven't been to a physical record store in a couple of years. Um, And I haven't visited a lot in Boston itself in recent years because Amazon, they've all closed. My wife and I used to run a blog that we've incorporated into the KirklandReport.com now called Planet Bibliomusica, the record stores and bookstores we loved and what happened to them. We didn't do a lot on it, but I do get nostalgic because, hey, it's that time of life where you start thinking about your childhood. I'm pushing 60. I got to start thinking about my childhood. I actually got 3 more, almost 2.5 more years before 60. Um, I always bought records when I was a kid at the local big mart stores, and the drug stores and the variety stores were around at the time. I didn't really visit my first record store until I was 10, and it was a short-lived one in the Newark, Ohio arcade. It didn't last very long. None of the ones in Newark lasted very long at that time. Of course, I didn't know about Rosie's Records and Tapes at that time, but I found it later and went there all the time until they shut it down because of illegal gambling in the back. Um, most of my older years have been spent going to either mom and pop stores that I've really enjoyed or chain record stores. Not conglomerate chains where I could avoid it, but local chains. I worked for a local chain for over a year during my 20s in Ohio. I was laid off during a tight period and never rehired. Um, which was fine. I mean, I liked working at Buzzard's Nest Records in Lancaster, Ohio for a while, but it was only part-time. It was never full-time. And some of the people I worked with were out there. I worked for the Transworld Company for a number of years in the 90s, doing my share at Record Town, Tape World, and Coconuts, movies, music, and more. Um, But since then, I haven't been into retail. Um, I used to love going out finding good cutout bins for albums. I told a story on Planet Bibliomusica of how my album collection grew by 200, 250 albums one summer because a local store had opened in Lancaster, walking distance from our apartment. We didn't have a car, and we're selling cutout albums of major names for 10 cents a piece one summer. I easily dropped 20 bucks and got 200 records inside of a week, including all the Raspberries albums I have, several Paul Davis albums, Henry Gross, a lot of big names from the 70s. And that was cool. And the cutout bins, where you go and buy albums that were 20, 30 bucks when they came out for 5 or 6 bucks. That's how I ended up with a copy of Thank God It's Friday, and how I ended up with a copy of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, both of which I picked up for 2 bucks in the summer of 1981, several years after they were out, at 20 bucks a piece, I think. Mostly, though, I miss going to the stores. When I moved to Massachusetts in 1993, there was this great record store we used to go to called Rocket Records. It was a tiny store on Route 1 in Saugus, where Kim and I lived. And they catered to the rock music crowd. They had, promos for sale all the time. Tons of, promo single CDs. They ended up going out of business in the late 90s, early 2000s, years after we'd last been there. We haven't had a car since 1997, and where they were located, it was hard to get to. No buses went up Route 1. I mean, it's a major thoroughfare. And taking a taxi or an Uber up there later would have been expensive. we've done an Uber to Barnes & Noble in Saugus a couple times. It's $20 one way, so it's kind of crazy. But we used to love that. And there were a lot of good record stores in Boston when I first moved up here. There was the Strawberries chain, which later Transworld absorbed. They had a great 5-story record store in downtown Crossing in Boston. All the new stuff was downstairs in the first floor, and then the further up you went, you got more specialized. The top floor was a bargain basement. You find all kinds of stuff up there, cutouts, used CDs, used cassettes, used albums. There were a lot of great stores in Cambridge when I first moved up here. None of them are there anymore. Tower Records is gone. HMV is gone. There were a couple of smaller mom and pop stores that are gone. The only one left in Cambridge that's of any significance that I'm aware of is the Newbury Comics branch that's at the Garage in Cambridge, which is a little eclectic little, I don't know if you'd actually call it a mall. It's 3 floors, few eateries, a few very avant-garde stores catering to the college crowd at Harvard, which is just up the street. It's a great Newbury's Comics to go to, though. But I used to love the independent record stores. I went to a store in Spokane, Washington when I was a teenager called the Music Box. It was downtown, a little bit outside the Skybridge system for a while. So I would jump off the Skybridge system at Pay and Save, walk up a block, walk down 2 blocks, and I would be there. They could get me, I would mail order what I wanted, and they would set it aside, and I'd do some more shopping when I was there. They were a great bunch of people. The lady's name that worked there, if I remember right, was Mary or Monica. She was super nice, and one day in 1980 they just decided to close. They'd been there since the 1940s. Too much competition from the other stores in the Skywalk chain that handled records like Penny's, and which had a pretty big section, and the largest single selection of all the major stores, the Crescent, no longer in existence. I missed being able to go through and flip through the bins, but I converted completely to CDs in the 80s and MP3s in the early 2000s simply because they were cheaper to buy. At the time I started buying MP3s, Amazon often offered a good album for $3. Can't beat that, So my MP3 collection is larger than anything else I have, as far as vinyl or cassette or single or anything. But I'm just kind of waxing nostalgic. I miss, because on my vacation, if COVID wasn't happening, we'd be on our way to the Cape, staying at Hyannis for a week, and traveling to the different places we like to shop down there, hanging out. We're not beach people, we're foodies, and we go to the seafood places. We go hang out at the mall. Cape Cod Mall is awesome. It's the best mall in the state, as far as I'm concerned. They have a Newbury Comics. The best one, actually. I like that one in the Garage the best of all the chain. But they have a small little mom and pop called Spinnaker downtown on Main Street in Hyannis. I've never brought much back from there because we travel to and from the Cape on the bus or the train, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to take bags of records, because I'd spend a lot of money at Spinnaker's if I had the money. We took a bus out to Orleans a couple years ago, 3 years ago, to visit a place called Booksmith Music Smith. I picked up a few magazines there. Didn't get any CDs, but I got some pictures. There's pictures to these places on our website. And then discovered another one we didn't have time to go to right across the street. A little place called Instant Karma. We got to get out there sometime. When COVID comes back and gets done, and then they find a vaccine, we don't go out much because we're both pre-existing conditions. I have chronic bronchitis, which is definitely not a good thing to deal with COVID. My wife is diabetic, type 2, so we don't go out a lot. We kind of protect ourselves from COVID. But once things get settled, the vaccine's there, it starts to settle down. There's a ton of record stores in the Boston area I haven't been to, and I'm going to start making a trip probably be taking probably either my Ion or my GoPro with me and shooting them if they'll let me. There's a lot of them I need to get to. I miss being able to go to record stores in the old days. It's just fun. I don't know why I'm on such a nostalgic kick this weekend. I think it's because I'm finally going to have access to my turntable, which means I can start using my 45s again, my LPs again. Been buying all these LPs again, and can't wait to start playing them. I can't wait to start sharing them with you. I can't wait to start digitizing them, which is the whole purpose of this project. I do miss that though. I've lived in several different areas, and when I was a kid, I used to get them at the local big box marts. In Washington, that was, like I said, like Penny's and the Crescent, and on the coast of Washington, over there, it was at a couple of convenience stores had a few 45s, and the drug stores over there. And there was one record store somewhere on 6th Avenue in a shopping center that's no longer there, or that's been completely redone since I lived there. I told a story once about when I was 12 years old. I went in there, and I can vividly remember what the clerk had on. I can't remember the name of the damn place, which makes me crazy. So if you live in Washington, Mazzy, maybe you can find this out for me. You're in Seattle. It was a small record store in the shopping center on 6th Avenue in Tacoma, Washington. It was in existence in 1975. There was a wigwam in that shopping center. And I remember the clerk, the day I went in there, had on khaki-colored clothes, button-down khaki shirt, beard, mustache, the 70s Eagles look. And he kind of got this shocked look on his face when this kind of overly plump 12-year-old brought up a John Denver album and singles by the Blackbyrds. I bought John Denver's Wind Song that day, along with a 45 of Walkin' in Rhythm by the Blackbyrds, a 45 of The Last Farewell by Roger Whittaker, a 45 of The Hustle by Van McCoy, and something else. I don't remember what, but it was not something. I think it was something even more out of the ordinary than Roger Whittaker, which I bought mainly because my mom loved that song. And the look on the clerk's face was priceless. I love stuff like that. I can still remember that. I also I've been treated rudely in stores before. I told another story on the website about visiting Eucalyptus Records in Spokane for the first time when I was 16 or 17. I drove up with a paycheck I'd gotten shortly after getting my license, and I was into all kinds of stuff when I was in high school. And the two clerks on duty that morning, I think it was a Friday, it was during the summer, were rather condescending to me when they saw that I'd brought a 12-inch single of Chic's I Want Your Love on pink vinyl to the checkout, along with a copy of the Keane Brothers' latest album, Taken Off, and something else. And they were kind of rude and condescending and obnoxious with my choice of music, and commented on it. Never set foot in that store again. I found them to be rather obnoxious, like I said. I was much better attuned to Odyssey Records in downtown Spokane for the full record store, or DJ's Sound City in the mini mall at Northtown, which was a fancy way to say the basement. Northtown was, at the time, Northtown is now a mall, but at the time it was a shopping center, a strip mall. And they had built a new mini mall where Grant's had gone out of business, and DJ's was down there, and I spent quite a bit of money in there that day, a lot more than I spent at the Eucalyptus. Does anyone else, young or old, get nostalgic about going to record stores when they were a kid? Because, I mean, like I said, I worked for 2 Chainz, and I had fun doing it. And I worked for Internet Radio Pioneer, DiscJockey.com for 2.5 years. That was my dream job. I was on the air as a DJ. I was programming. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, Lars Ulrich had to get involved. Napster shut us down, pretty much. You know, it's funny. I just don't really like Metallica anymore. I wonder why. I'm just wondering if anybody else has any interesting stories about shopping in their local stores when they were younger. I have memories, and I mean older. I mean I'm older now. I was still in my 30s when I moved up here, but I I was still younger, and I remember going to all those stores and stuff. And Kim remembers more than I do. She's lived up here her whole life. Um, it's just fun to talk about nostalgic things sometimes. And I'm serious. If there's a member of the VC that lives in the Tacoma, Washington area, it might be too far out for Mazzy. I would really like to know the name of that record store that I used to go to when I was a kid in Tacoma. I'd like to know the name of all the drugstores I used to go to in Gig Harbor when I was living out there. Um, just a little trip down memory lane. I'll be doing these occasionally, and just kind of musing on music and musing on record stores and bookstores and stuff. Um, I'm interested in hearing your memories, so you can record something or you can just put it in the comments below and I can take a look at it. I'm sure a lot of people have got great individual memories of certain shopping trips. Hopefully none of mine will turn out as bad as the one Ron Haggerty was talking about this week. Ron, the guy was a dick, okay? Anyway, I'm just rambling, so I'll sign off. I'll see you soon. Bye.